Baked Bros presents the Know Your Dose podcast. Join hosts Nadeem Al-Hassan and Derek Espinosa as they turn the soil on the cannabis industry. With over 10 years of combined industry experience, these two experts will deliver your dose of cannabis, psychedelics, and personal development. Follow on their journey as they aim to destigmatize cannabis, combat the abuse of pharmaceuticals, and implement their altruistic approach into the budding cannabis industry.
Happy Monday, sir. We are bringing you the KYD 420 news sesh, and today, Derek and I are going to talk about UFC fans love cannabis while baseball fans do not. Very interesting. I wonder why. Well, we're going to tell you. We're going to talk about it. So what we're going to cover today is which sports fans consume the most cannabis, which sports fans do not, and then what does this tell us about the state of sports? D-Man, how are you, sir?
You know, I'm having a killer Mondays, my friend.
It's another great day, another great week ahead of us. So let's jump right into this. We read an interesting article titled UFC and E-sports fans consume more cannabis than other sports fans. So why do you think that is? Or number one, why do you think that is? And then we'll jump into which sports fans consume the most.
I think that, we can answer which sports fans consume the most and then kind of break from there. I think based on this poll, 35% of UFC and esports fans consume cannabis, which was way more than some of the other sports. And I think what's interesting there is that those sports are relatively new in terms of, American sports, broadly speaking, right? The UFC, what was it, like the early 2000s, maybe 1999? And then esports, man, that's within the last 10 years or so that we started to see that arise. So I think it's interesting that there's this correlation between these two new sports and people consuming cannabis more often. That's what the poll asked, whether you consumed cannabis often or sometimes. What do you think about it? Do you have any insights as to why you think UFC and esports fans consume more cannabis?
Well, as an early esports aficionado myself, I played a lot of video games when I was younger, and dude, come on, cannabis and video games, way fun, way awesome, awesome. And so I got to imagine the people that are watching these sports play video games, so the two go hand in hand. When it comes to the UFC, it's kind of the same thing, obviously not as many people train in the UFC or train martial arts that watch UFC in comparison to esports. But, in terms of like martial arts, cannabis and martial arts have always gone hand in hand. Now, I'm kind of confused on why the fans, though, are more likely to consume cannabis while watching UFC, or that are, UFC aficionados. I really don't have an answer for that, man, because now if we were to talk about people who practice martial arts or UFC, I could talk about that all day, but I'm not quite sure about the fans. I don't know.
Well, I think that's actually the answer itself. So if you think about the subset of people that do martial arts, right? Only there's a huge amount of them, but only if you make it to the top, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we think about some of the elite UFC athletes that we know of, and there's quite a few who are open cannabis consumers. John Jones would be one, the Diaz brothers. I'm sure there's more than just that. I know Sean O'Malley, and I know several others who consume cannabis who may not, want to be open about it. So if that's the case, then you could imagine that the people who are practicing, the people who are into it, are also into consuming cannabis. It's not a secret that the jiu-jitsu community is cannabis friendly.
Yeah, big time, long time.
Same thing with wrestlers. Again, these things are kind of go hand in hand. So you could imagine that most of these people who are training jiu-jitsu are going to be UFC fans, who are wrestlers are going to be UFC fans, because that's kind of the natural progression of their sport. So they consume cannabis. And it's the same thing with video games. Like there's a stigma, right, of the guy smoking weed playing video games all day. Well, he's probably a fan of esports as well. You see what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah.
there's that connection. It's not as clear when we're talking about baseball, for example, where it's like name one baseball player off the top of your head who openly consumes cannabis. I can't really think of one.
Honestly, I couldn't name one. I'm sure there's one out there, but I really couldn't
Right.
name one. You know what I found interesting is that F1 fans, which is like the I don't know if it's called Indy cars or whatever, but those like really sweet looking race cars came in third place, but with 31%, and in terms of fans that consume cannabis, followed by MotoGP, which is like the motorcycle, like the really like the 4 liter little motorcycles that they turn so sharp that like their knees touch the ground. Those guys and tennis at 30%. So that's pretty cool, man. I mean, it is. And a lot of these major sport associations don't allow cannabis sponsorships, but we are seeing a little bit more of it. So like the IndyCar pro golfers are starting to allow CBD sponsorships. UFC is allowing fighters to obtain CBD sponsorships. We've also heard about Major League Baseball, I believe, right? Or they won't allow sponsorships, but they're going to allow them to consume. Wasn't this was talked about. Yeah.
Another thing that's happened, I think the NFL either plans to or has, and same with the NBA, to remove cannabis from the class of drugs that they test for.
Well, dude, this is great all the way around. I mean, from the fans, it's only gonna make the fans happier as well,
right?
Because we all know that cannabis is superior when it comes to certain pharmaceuticals in terms of having less negative side effects, and there's a pretty alarming statistic of NFL players that retire that are addicted to opioids or
right.
And same with a few other sports. And so I think this would be really good, man. This is cool. This is a big step.
There's some interesting things that I just thought of as we were talking. One is, why is extreme sports not on the list? Like, I want to know what percentage of skateboard fans consume cannabis. Snowboard fans consume cannabis.
Like X gamers, right?
Yeah, it's got to be higher than 35.
Well, happy Monday, man. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Our audience, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. I hope you're enjoying these short little episodes. Please leave a rating and review. It always helps us out with the algorithm gods. Of course, leave your name, leave a review, reach out to us, and we will send you a free shirt on the Bake Bros. Have a wonderful week. Bye. Hey everybody, quick disclaimer. The Know Your Dose podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. Let's be real, none of us are doctors. Our content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical or public health advice. Please be smart and always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Seriously, never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. That would just be insane.